I'm Emmy,
I'm Annie.
and this week we're talking about Winter Burrow.
But first, let's get into some news. And before that, let's just say that we're so excited to be back after a long break away. Life got busy, but we never stopped thinking about the podcast.
Truly have never stopped. It just turns out takes a while to get ramped back up.
It does. But we are excited to be back. We have been recording. This episode you're going to hear was recorded quite a while ago, actually, aside from this beginning and the ending. So we're going to be releasing again on a hopefully more regular schedule soon. And let's get into it. So yes. I had one piece of news that I wanted to discuss just because we had months ago talked about like a prelude to this, which is that last week, or rather a couple of days ago, Nintendo announced that it would be raising the price of the Switch 2 and actually also the original Switch in certain territories. So it's in Japan, the US, Canada, and Europe with plans to roll out these price changes elsewhere. And at least in the US, the cost of the Switch 2 is going up from $450 to $500. And I say we discussed a preamble to this basically because we've already talked about how the costs of hardware are going up because so many of hardware costs, all of those parts are also used for AI data centers and the hardware needed to train AI models. So that was not explicitly named as part of the reason why Nintendo is raising prices. They just said market conditions and the global outlook, but we kind of know what that means. The price change takes place on May 25th in Japan, and then in the US it takes place September 1st, 2026. So if you were really considering a Switch 2, I guess grab it while you still can at the $450 price before it goes up. For me, I'm just happy that I have one, first off, based on the generosity of a friend, so I didn't have to pay for mine at all. Very lucky. Second, that I got one before any price increases and before the new Fire Emblem game comes out, because I know I would have been so mad if I had to buy one and it cost more by the time Fire Emblem came out.
Yeah, I'm really glad. I had not really been planning on getting a Switch 2, and then I was really jealous that you had a Switch 2 and that you could play Pocopia, and I wanted to do that.
I know this is probably the least important bit of news really going on as well either. We've been away so long and we don't seem very up on things anyway, so that's just a lot has happened since we last posted and I didn't think we needed to cover everything else big that has happened between now and then either. Yeah. So that's the news. That's what I have for you. So with that being news, how about a long-awaited State of Silksong?
It's really funny that it's been this long and it's oh, what's your latest updates? And my updates is I still haven't finished the game. I also just I've been playing Pocopia. Fight that I am avoiding is actually not that bad.
It's really not. You're gonna be okay, I promise.
Get back to it. Yeah. I've been okay thus far.
Emmy is at the very end of Act 2.
Yeah. But you have much more exciting update for State of Silksong.
Well, it's true. Which is, in a way, this is my final State of Silksong. Because I finished the game. I 100%ed it as much as anybody could. I feel like there were a couple small things that I didn't do, but overall did everything. And then finally I was on a trip back in February and I was flying back home and I got to the final boss and I thought that I was just going to be practicing basically because it would be really hard, and then I was actually getting really close to beating it. And I was sitting there I can't do this on a plane. It should be on the big screen. I should see it in all its glory with a good speaker. I also shouldn't be in public because I know I'll probably cry. And, well, I did beat the game on that plane and I did cry. And I was sitting there feeling stupid about it because I was what is this person sitting next to me? Well, actually, the person sitting next to me was a young woman who then pulled out her laptop and started playing Civilization. So maybe it was the perfect person to cry next to.
Yeah.
We didn't speak, but I felt better about it. So yeah, I beat Silksong. It was yet another all-timer for me. I know that I still have my qualms with it that have already been covered in the game's press, but I don't know what to do with myself now. I have had some time to reflect and play other games, so I'm feeling this less acutely. But I was really sitting there like, I played it very in depth for months, so I was sitting there lamenting. I was like, but I lived there. Where do I go now? I lived there. And I really can't wait for the DLC. That's where I'm at. I beat the game.
Just once again thinking about how Silksong was originally planned
I know.
DLC.
And the problem is, what if this DLC ends up being... So, Hollow Knight did have DLC that did come out.
Yeah, true.
So there's also precedent where the DLC will...
That you do get
or
the
could
DLC.
just be DLC.
Yeah.
So, whatever does happen with Sea of Sorrows, I'm here. I'm waiting. I'll wait forever. I don't care. It was really beautiful. I'm really excited for you to get through it at one point so we can actually talk about it. So now we can get into Winter Burrow.
Yes, let's talk about Winter Burrow.
So Emmy and I played Winter Burrow for this episode, which is a game that we had seen upcoming some months ago, and then our friend Robin also played it and reviewed it. I ended up not reading her review, by the way, before we played because I didn't want...
Oh yeah, I didn't even realize that she had written a review.
Yeah, like I didn't want her opinions to color anything about this. So this is without Robin's opinions in this whatsoever. We separately wanted to play it. But I can give an intro about the game. So for the uninitiated, Winter Burrow is a cozy survival game developed by Pine Creek Games and published by Noodle Cake Studios, which I looked into Noodle Cake. They have a ton of delightful indie games in their roster that I would love to explore more. So we can talk about that later, but published by Noodle Cake Studios. It came out on November 12th, 2025, so it's been a few months, and now we're recording this in January 2026. In the game, you play as a young mouse who spent their childhood in a forest burrow but moved to the city with their parents when they were seeking work. However, the mouse's parents, this is like years on, they've been in the city, they're working, I want to say in the mines, but they're in a city. I don't know, I don't remember if it was mines or like factory work, but it was something industrial.
Yeah, I was assuming like factory, like turn of the century factory work.
Yes.
Is what I was imagining.
So they move to the city, they're working in this industrial manner, and then they get sick and die. So you, the mouse, return to your childhood burrow to reconnect with your aunt, who still lives nearby and was supposed to be taking care of the burrow while you were away. However, when you get home, you find the burrow abandoned and in disrepair. So you have to fix up the burrow, find your aunt, and brave the elements of the winter forest as you explore for resources. The main structure of the game then ends up revolving around the quest of helping your aunt get back on her feet while helping out 4 other woodland creatures around the forest, and then you unlock new areas as you upgrade your tools. We've got a frog who wants to reconnect with his child, a squirrel cast out from their squirrel society, a hedgehog whose partner ventured into the forest a while ago and hasn't returned, and a mole researcher who used to be a good friend of your aunt's. They're like a late game quest person. Gameplay-wise, as you gather resources, you have to monitor 4 main stats of your mouse, which are health, hunger, warmth, and stamina. You use stamina when you're swinging a tool or a weapon or while you're running. That regenerates, but you have to be careful when you're low. Health is the damage you can take in a fight with hostile bugs in the forest. And then hunger and warmth are self-explanatory. Both go down while you're out exploring and have to be replenished. As for the developer, Pine Creek Games is a small, fully remote studio based out of Denmark, and this is the team's first published game. Benjamin Salkvist is the CEO and art director, so I read a few interviews with him about where they got the inspiration for the game. They've cited The Wind in the Willows frequently as an inspiration. In an interview with Jonathan Garrett of Burly Bird Media, Benjamin specifically cited as his favorite the illustration work of Robert Ingpen in a 2007 edition of the game, and I'll link that just so you can get an idea of everything they were looking for when they put this together. We often find ourselves excited about a mouse game, so this is definitely one of those mouse games that we thought we had to play. While I was playing this game, I also texted Emmy that I had 2 stupid ideas about this episode that I hoped to execute. Unfortunately, I was only able to carry out one of those stupid ideas. Emmy, can I tell you about those stupid ideas before we get very into...
Yes, can I ask a question first?
Yes, please.
I'm curious, is when you said cozy survival game, was that your label or was that their label?
It's their label. It's definitely how they describe it. And then in other interviews, Benjamin also talked about wanting to make a survival game that was a little softer. Like, it's not just cozy vibes, but that, like, in comparison to, for example, Don't Starve, which I haven't played. I haven't played a ton of survival games in general. So I'll talk about my comparisons that I thought of. But Don't Starve is one of those really, like, if you die, you lose everything kind of games, and they didn't want you to have to lose everything. So it's meant to be a little easier, but still very much a survival game at its core.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Shall I move on to the stupidity?
Yes.
So first I'll tell you about the thing that I wanted to do and then unfortunately was not able to do. Okay. Which I really think would have been funny for just you and maybe 5 other people and nobody else. But while I was playing this game, which is set in like a wintry, snowy forest, I was at home for the holidays in New Jersey, and my family is from a very woodsy, Farmville-y area of New Jersey. And oh yeah, I refer to it as like Farmville, the Garden State, baby. Like, that's where there's cornfields. Anyway, it had also recently snowed in this foresty area where I was staying, and I really wanted to go do my own survival stuff. I wanted to make a little video. I thought it would be really funny if I was like, okay, what survival things does the mouse do in this snowy forest? And what if I got one of my siblings to record me out in our snowy forest attempting to start a fire or something? Like, what if the question was, can Annie survive the way a mouse does in this video game? The answer would probably be a resounding no, but I figured I would try. And then, unfortunately, and I actually had most of the stuff available to me that I would, like, need to do. Like, we have a fire pit outside, and I could go collect, like, kindling and whatnot. However, the main issue was I would need a camera person, and the sibling that was available, my designated camera person, unfortunately ended up having a surprise morning shift at their retail weekend job while we were both home, and so we didn't end up being able to record. But we even would have been able to laugh about how, you know, in the game you're repairing the burrow and you have to repair the stove before you can make any tea or anything. Uh-huh. My parents' stove is so broken right now. Like, it doesn't light on its own. You have to every single time you have to light it like it's a grill. So you turn the gas on and then quickly like apply fire to it. So that would have been part of it for sure. I would have been surviving like a mouse. But I didn't.
I love the idea of like, what if our child repaired our oven for us, but for content?
Yeah, but for content. I just thought you would really laugh at the video if I had a few like instances of just me out struggling in the snow.
That would have really landed with me. I would have really enjoyed it. I also think the way that you described, like the way that you talk about your siblings is so funny. Oh. I needed a camera person, thus I needed a sibling. I only had one sibling available to me at the time.
Siblings are resources to me, an oldest sibling, and I was low on those resources, unfortunately. However, the best sibling for the job was thankfully the one available, who I think would have been a perfect side character in this adventure. So
I think that they would have... Yeah, I think they would have added a lot.
So next time I'm home, maybe I'll find something else to rope them into, but that was my idea that I didn't get to do, so I'm sorry I didn't get to do it. It again also would have been a resounding failure on a few levels. That was idea 1. Idea 2 was something that I did actually get to do. I told you I didn't have a lot of experience with survival games. The 2 games that I thought of when I was playing this were the Fall in London spin-off, Sunless Sea, where you play like as a ship, essentially, a ship captain, and you're trying to survive in this like eldritch ocean, and you die a lot in that game and then come and build back. The other thing that I was really, really thinking of the entire time was, were you ever Chronicles of Narnia kid?
Not really, but I read them, or at least read the first few.
Did you ever watch the movie, the one where Mr. Tumnus is hot?
I mean, maybe, but I don't know enough to be like, this is who that is, and he was
James
hot.
McAvoy played him.
Okay.
So clearly it didn't make that much of an impression on you. Otherwise, you would remember it. You would know exactly what it was.
All I know about Chronicles of Narnia and my childhood is that there was a period of time where I was obsessed with Turkish Delight
Oh.
because they
I
made
think
it sound
like all
so
of us
delicious.
tried it at one point because it was
Yeah.
like, is it like sell out your siblings good? And I think the answer is, well, it depends where
No.
you get it
Yeah.
and like what flavor it is.
And your relationship with your siblings.
My resources, you mean?
Yeah, which sibling is available to be sold out?
Okay, so I was obsessed with Chronicles of Narnia, and when that movie came out, I was also a big fan. And it was also the era of the Game Boy Advance, and the era of family members who needed to get me Christmas gifts but didn't know much about video games, so they would see like a video game based on a property that they knew I liked and be like, just get her that. So
Yeah.
for that reason, I had the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe Game Boy Advance game. And in that game, for the first half of the game, you're wandering around a wintry forest, and it has a warmth mechanic. And you can freeze to death if you're not careful. But you stop yourself from freezing to death by hanging out at fires and starting fires at fire pits and drinking tea and eating toast, I think is the warmth food, to get your warmth meter up as you're fighting. And I was like, well, I played that when I was 8 years old. So I figured I would give it another try because it's been that long. So I did get my Game Boy Advance, showing off my pearl blue Game Boy Advance SP right now. And
Very pretty.
actually, this one isn't mine, it's a sibling's. But we both had pearl blue ones, and they don't care about having it. So it's at my house right now. And I got my game. And I replayed the first half of the game where you can die of cold. Turns out, this game is easy.
You weren't expecting this.
I mean, I should have, but like, it was so hard to survive that part of the game to me when I was a kid. I was really guzzling tea and I was running out of these resources all the time. Turns out I was just a child and bad at it, is what I learned. So that was the survival mechanic I wanted to compare this to. Also, I don't recommend this game to anybody who hasn't seen the movie because they don't provide enough story context for you to understand what's going on. But I do think that it was pretty like advanced like survival mechanics to throw at the children who were the intended audience of this game at the time. And I promise this is relevant to our discussion of Winter Burrow because I also wanted to talk about coziness versus difficulty in this game and how it ended up coming off.
Oh, you have discourse to introduce.
Exactly, like through the Game Boy Advance version of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, featuring James McAvoy. Kind of, he's a little wonky looking in this.
Not
maybe,
as hot.
Yeah, maybe you wouldn't have had a crush on him either if this was your introduction.
I did see while I was at home. We watched the Santa Claus, of which I think I've said I've seen the Santa Claus 2 many, many times because my family only had sequels on DVD.
Okay.
So I saw the Santa Claus 2 and Legally Blonde 2 way more often than I saw the Santa Claus or Legally Blonde.
I feel like you're about to say something about Bernard.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch the show Numbers that he was on?
No, but my parents, while we were watching the Santa Claus, one of my parents from the kitchen was like, "Oh, he was on that show we watched."
Yes, Numbers.
Yeah.
So there's more Bernard content out there should you choose to seek it.
I think there's like a recent resurgence in talking about having a crush on Bernard on TikTok, and he like, the actor came to chat.
Yeah. At least you're not alone, you know? At least you're not alone.
It's like, I think the first time I remember like having a crush in a movie.
Oh. Well, for me it was Jeremy Sumpter in the live action Peter Pan, which is, I own it on Blu-ray now for those reasons. But now that I'm older, I also appreciate that Jason Isaacs as Captain Hook was very attractive.
You have more mature tastes.
Well, I understand everything now. It's just
Okay. Let's talk about
Winter
Do you
Burrow.
want to start with coziness and difficulty? Or do you
Yes,
should
and I
we
think it's
give
my
more
main.
in-depth?
So to be clear, I played this game. It was a couple weeks ago now that I sat and just like played it like very addicted over like the course of 4 days or so. Like I blew through this game. I really didn't want to put it down. So there's something to be said about how like I was in it. But also, and I think a lot of survival games suffer from this in the later game. So this is an issue of the genre, and I don't know how to solve it. But I thought it was too easy to survive. I really did. And then so I was kind of partly wondering who the intended audience of this game is. If I gave this to a kid, like Child Annie, who was playing, what's it called? The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Child Annie probably would have flamed out because I was having issues with the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So maybe not for kids, even though it's a very like storybook aesthetic, which also could appeal to kids. But also maybe not for adults because it was very forgiving and easy to survive. Which felt like at maybe an early point. Or maybe I was just playing it too obsessively and I wasn't supposed to be collecting so many elderberries or whatever. And I was too good. I had too many resources and I was able to make too much tea to stay warm. So yeah, I was wondering, and they talked in interviews too about how difficult it is to strike a balance. And I was like, yes, definitely difficult to strike the balance. Still don't know if we made it there in terms of the balance between being forgiving and still being a survival game.
Yeah, I was realizing while I was finishing it up and this morning that at no point did I die.
Yeah,
And
I didn't die once.
Yeah. And I was like, actually, I probably should have died to see what happens when you die.
Oh, I should have done that too. You're so right.
I agree. It's quite easy. However, I think it does a good job of... It's not so easy that there's no tension. And I think that, to me, that's good enough. I wouldn't mind it being a little harder. However, I think it's interesting that it has a storybook aesthetic, and then the story is pretty dark. Or it's not necessarily... It's still, like, wholesome, but it's not without... It doesn't feel sanitized.
Oh yeah, there were some bleak moments.
Right, yeah, it doesn't feel, which I think is often something that people complain about cozy games, is not really about the difficulty and more about it presenting like a sanitized view of the world or an idea that like, well, if we simply return to simpler times, everything will be better.
Yeah.
And I don't think that this game does that. And I think that I like that a lot. And I like that it still has like... Because to me, I'm like, look, I love cutesy aesthetics. I do. I like cozy games because I like cutesy things. And I like being a cute little mouse. And I still think that there's something to be said about the association of these cutesy aesthetics and femininity, or people's perception of femininity, and that some of the hate towards cozy games, and I think there's also people with very well-founded arguments that make sense about like what they see as the problem with some cozy games, but I think sometimes it's just people shitting on like girl games and things that they associate with women and girls, and I think that sucks. So it's not that there's not criticism to be had of it, but I like that there was this game that was like a little bit more accessible than your standard survival game. So I could have done with a little more difficulty, but I don't think it was devoid of tension because I think the UX of it is such that it really reminds you you're in danger.
Yeah, can we talk about that aspect? Because I loved it. I do think like on all counts, design-wise, they really knocked it out of the park. Whether it was being cute, whether it was the the bold black lines around everything for this like colored in storybook effect. And then also the reminder that you're in danger. It was the creeping frost, right? The frost overlay when you're getting too cold and how it strengthens and crackles when you're near complete cold. That was so good.
Yeah. So just to describe it, I would say I think it's when you're about halfway down on your warmth meter, and by the way, one of the reasons it's easy to survive is because once you run out of heat, you don't die, you just start losing health. So to die, you would need to, and I think the most likely way you would die is through exposure, because the combat in it's pretty hard to get
the combat is
by it.
Pitiful.
Right. So it is quite hard to die because you would need to lose both your warmth meter and your heart meter, and you would somehow need to not be paying attention or not be prepared at all. And it's quite easy to be prepared. But it makes it hard because once you get to about half heat, there is kind of like a frost overlay that forms a vignette around the screen. And at first it's just like fairly transparent, and then it increases the opacity so that it's like harder and harder to see around you. So it definitely feels like there is like, oh shit, I gotta get inside. And then I think as the game went on, I was like, I'm fine, because I figured out the rhythm of like, I'm gonna be fine. I think the combo of that and the map not having a lot of detail lends itself to having a little bit more tension, and I think they do a really good job of that. And so if it was absent that tension, I would have complaints about the difficulty level, but because it had that tension, it still did feel like this is not a game, this is still a survival game. It's not like a farming sim or something where like my urge in this game was to just go out and gather as much shit as I could constantly. But because there is a burden of like, you start with a pretty small inventory, you have to go all the way back to your burrow.
Oh, my enemy is small inventory.
But like, I think that also plays a role in developing the tension. So like it kicks you out of that maybe cozy game mindset, because my immediate urge was like, no, I'm gonna gather all this stuff, build up all of my things, and then I was like, I'm making no progress in this game, and I'm bored because I have to keep like going back to the burrow. And then I was like, that's on purpose. Like,
it encouraged you to branch out, literally.
Right, yeah, because it is hard to go back to like to gather a bunch of stuff, and then you're like, well, shit, I needed this thing, and now I can't. I have to drop something else. And then, like, do I have enough time before I freeze to death to get back to the burrow? And usually you do, because of the heart meter. I would say, like, an easy way to just, like, up the difficulty if they wanted to do that is to just make it, if you run out of heat, you die.
Yeah, that's actually very true. Because it really didn't... It looked like there were high stakes because of the frost, but there were not actually super high stakes to getting all the way cold. Yeah, which actually, now that I think about it, was also the way the cold worked in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. When you went all the way down, you didn't die immediately, you then started losing health. But your health is also pretty meager in that game, so... Right. The stakes were perhaps higher in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
This is kind of out of order, but the other time where I was like, whoa, like stressed out in the game is the fucking tarantulas.
Oh, they were big and scary.
Yeah, but also not hard to deal with. No. Like, they're scary and they come at you fast, and then they don't really hurt you that much or that frequently.
No, so they're so easy to dodge. So in this game, the enemies are all bugs, and there's like several levels of bugs that you encounter, and the difficulty scales with the area. So like, you're never like really without the right weapon to fight the bug you've encountered. But yeah, the most scary big enemies in the like final area are those spiders, and they're huge compared to the other bugs. The other bugs are about your size, and the spiders are like 4 times your size. But no, the only time I was really fearing for my life was when there were 2 spiders that I aggroed at once that both came at me, and in that case I applied the tried a true coward method and just ran away into the previous area so that I didn't have to deal with that. Then I was more careful the next time I went back.
Yeah.
The combat music does also up the feeling of you're so in danger right now with the spiders.
Yeah. And you don't have, like, weapons per se. You just have your axe or your pickaxe, which you can swing at them to do
so
damage.
Picture a little mouse hacking away at an enormous spider. The Shining style. Blood and all.
I want to go into more detail on the narrative really quickly because I think it's interesting. So, you start out, this burrow's been abandoned, but you find your aunt pretty quickly. She's just, like, across the way, and she built a new house. And
there was just, like, a broken bridge. You build a bridge.
Yeah.
You get to her.
Yeah. And so, you learn a few things. She's helping you clean up the burrow and learn how to survive. And then she gets kidnapped.
By an
owl. Yes, by an owl. And my assumption was the rest of the game is going to be trying to get your aunt back from the owl. But that's not true, actually. It's like you do a couple things, chasing the owl, you rescue your aunt, and then there's still like half of the game left. And during that time, she's recovering. So you have some goals about getting her some healing tea and some healing stew and helping her recover. And then eventually her burrow was destroyed. She wants to go back to her burrow. So fixing up her burrow, and then that's where the game kind of ends. So that's the framing of it. But the game loop is, regardless, you go out, you are trying to gather ingredients to prep yourself to survive so you can get further and further to, at first, rescue your aunt, and then complete some quests for other characters, which will then give you as a reward something that will help you, help your aunt recover. And then there's also a progression of leveling up your equipment as you reach new areas. So sometimes the reward for doing a quest for one of the side characters is getting a new recipe to improve your axe or your pickaxe, which will then, kind of like a Metroidvania, unlock an area because it might be blocked with rocks that you couldn't break because you didn't have a good enough pickaxe.
You can also upgrade your clothing as you go to help you be warmer for longer, so you're able to spend more time outside, essentially. And I loved the clothing. I loved that there was a mechanic where you have to sit in a chair to knit up your clothing for yourself with new materials. I want every mouse sweater that is in the game. I thought that was a really sweet, delicate touch. We can talk about the NPCs that you encounter and their stories in particular. Did you have a favorite, by the way? So, to go over them, there's a frog who is estranged from his child, his tadpole. What accent is he supposed to be speaking in? Is it, like, Scottish, Irish, some sort of brogue?
Yeah, maybe he says, yeah.
He says, yeah. So his tadpole, his wee tadpole, that he's estranged from. His whole thing is that he builds stuff out of rock and is very rigid about that. Rock is the best. Why would I use wood to build something when rock is solid? And then when you finally find his kid who's run away from home, the kid is like, I just wanted a house made of wood. Was that so terrible? And it's about helping them reconcile. Then there's also the squirrel in the squirrel forest, which is like one of the second main areas. Well, I guess it's the third main area, but I count the ones outside the burrow as like the areas.
Right, yeah. Like you run into Bufo, who is the frog toad first. Also, is Bufo canonically a man? I read Bufo.
Oh, actually,
as
nobody has a
woman.
gender. That everybody is all they thems. So I guess that is a type of gender, but yeah, they're all gender neutral. So apologies for saying he. Actually, everybody is a they them.
I just was interested because I read Bufo as like a mother.
Interesting. So no, I guess like in my head, I kind of like put people into a gender or another in a way I shouldn't have when I was playing. But the only person who has any like gendered title is your aunt. It seems to be, and then everything else is very solidly a they them situation.
Right, so there's Bufo, the frog / toad. There's Gnawtusk, who is a squirrel who has some memory problems and has been kind of abandoned by their squirrel colony.
Which, by the way, I thought was such a bullshit. I thought that squirrels were famous for having memory issues. Every single one of them bury their caches, and maybe this is just a squirrel stereotype and I need to be educated, but I thought that they all bury their caches and then forget that they're there, and that's why we get so many oak trees growing. Like, I didn't think that Gnawtusk should be, I was like, glass houses other squirrels. But that is her story, yes. Her memory loss has caused her to be ostracized.
See, this is interesting because I read Gnawtusk as male.
There. Sorry, there. What does it mean for us? Okay, we're learning about ourselves. I'm just interested
in our projection onto these characters,
yeah,
even though they're not specifically gendered. Right, Gnawtusk is the next one, and then there is a hedgehog above your burrow, named. What is?
I forget their name.
Their partner's name is Pine Sap.
Moss.
Yes. Moss, who is missing their partner Pine Sap. And the last one you meet is Willow, the mole scholar researcher, who's friends with your aunt. Also, I didn't want to nitpick before, but you mentioned like, oh, it's been years, but I think really it would have been like months for the mice, because there's a conversation later that I find very interesting that they like include of your aunt talking about the variable ages, like that.
I was actually going to bring that up as part of a world building question I've got. So it feels like, in terms of like the course of a mouse's life, it's been years.
In mouse years,
but in real time, it was probably months, which I then do have questions about for like. I don't know how much time has passed for any of these creatures when it comes to their past that they describe. Like, for example, Pine Sap has been gone for a while in the forest. How long is a while? How has Moss survived in the amount of time that Pine Sap has been gone? Because there's a certain amount of like degradation to their camp that has occurred that indicates a lot of time has passed. But also, Moss has yet to starve to death, even though they probably should have. So what's going on there? How come the aunt can't remember some of her supposed good friends? How much time has passed? And what is the difference between, like, a canon mouse's lifespan versus a mole's? I don't know. I don't know enough about forest creatures, but it brought up so many questions for me that are not going to be answered in this game whatsoever.
Yeah. I'm fine with that.
Why? Why are you fine with that?
I don't know. It's just like they needed a day-night cycle. That's the other thing that I guess you could say is inconsistent, is like you can sleep and you can sleep till morning, so the implication is that like a day has passed, which would imply you're aging very rapidly as a mouse.
Oh my god, I didn't even actually think about that aspect of it all too, but that's even more worrisome. Like, what if you reach old age and die before you can get your aunt back?
Yeah.
Like, if she died too.
I think the length of this game, it's like I don't need to know the minutia of their relative lifespans. I think is just used in an interesting way to talk about, like, I don't know, time passing and old age, and I think it's interesting, and it gets to be used in the story in an interesting way, and then I don't need to have all of the potential conflicts smoothed out.
I guess it mostly bothered me first in the context of Mole's story, which we can talk more about, because just logistically I was like, what do you mean? But second, it was confusing to me in terms of how disparate the forest seemed to have become over the time you were away, in that your aunt seemed to know a lot of other creatures and be friends with them, and then forgot about them somehow as time passed. And like, in terms of how a community falls apart, I was like, did this just happen with the onset of winter?
That's what I took it as. It
didn't make total sense to me. But yeah, maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, to me, I was just like, she's old. It's been a while for her, since like her early mouse years, before winter came. And so she hasn't seen these people since winter set in, and doesn't have clear memories of them because she's aging.
Yeah. just have questions. Where are their records? Where are their mouse records that they that they can reference for these things?
They're an oral society.
Damn it. So yes, that's the story. Those are the mice. I don't know. Do you want to go through each story and the summary and conclusion? Because we can. But I more wanted to talk about a couple of moments from them that really struck me, because I don't want to completely spoil how the game plays out for anybody who listens to this and then maybe does go try it out.
Yeah, let's talk about, well, yeah, I have something to say about the overall structure
then you go ahead.
Of the story.
You say that first.
Okay, yeah, I was like, I don't know what the best order is. I really like that they chose to not end the game, like, make the whole game rescuing your aunt from the owl. Like, I really thought it was just going to be like, okay, and then, like, once that happens, the game will be done. I really like that they instead are like, no, that's the middle point, and then there's more to be done here about caring for this person who went through a traumatic experience and, like,
I really
recovering.
Like that too.
Yeah, I love that, because I think so often in stories we see, like, okay, the person's been rescued and then everything's good now. And there's no attention to, like, the slower parts that, like, still matter very much in real life. And I think it's another traditionally feminine coded thing that is often left on the margins, which is, like, care work and caregiving is, like, thought of as, like, boring and pedestrian, and, you know, it's not part of an adventure. So I really enjoy the focus on including it in this story.
Yeah, I really liked that too. I did appreciate it because it was just like a twist on the genre in a way that you wouldn't normally see in this type of story. Though I mean, this is where I'm all doom and gloom about it. I was like, that mouse would not have survived kidnapping by an owl,
but we're in a storybook, it's fine.
Yeah, but then you get this, like, lovely little illustration of her, like, you find the owl's nest and the owlets are in there, like, jabbering at you while you try to get your aunt out, who's, like, secreted herself underneath the nest. And I was like, that's not how that works. That's okay. But it was nice that she survived. I'm sitting here like the aunt should have died, which is obviously a different type of game. And I don't really think that should have happened either.
But also we can talk about other parts of the game where it doesn't pull its punches either.
Yeah, there is indeed death in this game. And those were a couple of the moments that I wanted to talk about, actually.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about them.
So, separate from the main story, did you ever happen upon bodies in the woods?
Yes. I was going to ask you if you found corpses as well.
I found corpses. There were two. I don't know if that's all there are in the game, but I found 2 frozen mice in the snow, and then the thing that you're able to do is build, like, a cairn of rocks over them. And it says something about, like, a poor soul, you know, lost in the woods, succumbed to the elements, and you pay your respects. I was shook. I was like, ooh, I felt a chill in my bones. I didn't think it would do that, but it did.
Well, especially because the start of the story being, oh, you went to the city, and it's not the classic cozy setup of, like, oh, I was just sick of my, like, city job and living in the city, and I wanted to return to nature. It's like, no, your parents died.
You're orphaned.
And your only family left is, and, like, it was, they thought it was going to be a better life for you, and it wasn't. And so you are going back to where your family is from, because that's where you have community and family.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, I just want to get away from the rush and bustle of modern life and return to, I'm trying to do the V in there, return to to like a simpler time, and it's like, and also based on the fact that like, no, you have to survive.
Yeah, it's
Not
not
a simpler
idyllic there
time.
either.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean, I guess I should have expected it because it from the get-go tells you like this is a survival game, and despite it being cute, there is death here. Death just never came to me. But basically, the descriptions of those mice are like, could have been you.
Yeah. So what I meant to say about why the reason I introduced the starting story again is because they could have left it where it's just like that's just in the framing, and then never had you directly engage in it as the character, like the same way like in a book you might like someone might have this like traumatic backstory, but it's never really like on the page. But in this case they made it like on the page, so to speak. Of you see these corpses and other things happen where death happens, so you are not, even though your aunt does miraculously escape from the owls, not all always works out so well.
My only thing, and I guess this could also be a specific choice, because my only thing about finding those bodies in the woods was like, I was like, is there a quest for this? Like, can I talk to somebody about this in this game? Like, or are we just gonna accept that there are bodies in the woods and move on? And in the game, yes, there's no side quest for it. You don't like get a checklist of all the bodies you could find and make graves for. Which I don't know if I would have liked either, but I really was sitting there like, can I get some therapy about this, please, in game? Like, can I even chat with my aunt? And it never comes up in dialogue with any other character. And I guess in terms of like, this could be a choice, that could just mean that survival is such a part of the fabric of life in this culture of the woods that, yeah, you do just find a body and put the rocks over it and move on and don't talk about it. But I really I wanted the rest of the game to acknowledge it somehow, and there wasn't more.
Yeah, I like that choice. I think if there was a quest for it, I wouldn't even be thinking about it. I mean, I'd still be thinking about like finding the bodies in the woods, but I think it would gamify it in a way that I like that it wasn't, kind of, and I liked that. Yeah, it was just like it's kind of like the you found a body in the woods.Id I call Bella Hadid?
Oh God.
It's just like, yeah, because the implication, although I was just saying like I don't care about the implications of these other world building things, but I think the implication is like this is a very normal part of life, and you do what you can and you move on from it, or you try to move on from it. You take a moment.
Yeah. So then that does want to bring me to the more specific example of this in one of the larger quests in which you also have to face death. And this is spoilers for the Moss and Pine Sap side of things, but it's the Moss and Pine Sap side of things. Pine Sap went away hunting in the woods a while ago, hasn't come back, and successively through trips to the woods you find evidence of Pine Sap having been there. And there's, what was it, like a scarf or a hat that was lost. There's some fur of the fox that they were hunting, and basically every time you bring an item back, Moss is like, wow, Pine Sap never would have just abandoned that, but I'm sure they're fine. And with growing horror that Pine Sap is just probably dead out there and Moss can't accept it. And you finally do find Pine Sap's body in the very end. I thought that was so gorgeously done. Again, with like design in this game, I think the sound design of moments like that was really good. The music drops away. There's just like the wind through the trees going, and the camera kind of focuses on the specific like object. There are a couple other ways this is used, but the object being Pine Sap's poor little cold frozen body there. And then you do have to go back to Moss and give them like the final definitive evidence of this is what happened. But you also help Moss move on through that. Like the whole quest is kind of like an acceptance and grieving process. I thought that was really, really, really well done in the end on every level. And it was so
Me
dark too. I didn't know we'd get there, and we did.
Yeah. Also, I would guess this is also the last area you access as well. Like, I think it's the last area that's, like, is maybe blocked by flint rocks. So you have to have, like, powered up your it's like, I think it's the last recipe I got, at least, to have the strongest pickaxe so you can get past that. And there's not much else there. There's just this clearing where Pine Sap's body is. Yeah, because I thought, even though, like, I was like, yeah, I found these bodies in the woods, but then, like, you know, you were able to rescue your aunt from the owls, so probably Pine Sap is fine. It's probably just a misunderstanding. And I like that it didn't pull its punches with that.
Yeah. And the description is just like, just another poor soul caught in a winter storm. It just happened kind of randomly, despite Pine Sap being apparently this, like, quite strong hedgehog who could handle themselves. Yeah. Moss and Pine Sap's relationship as depicted was so interesting too, because Moss is depicted as this kind of codependent hedgehog. Like, once they're in a relationship with Pine Sap, they completely lose faith in their ability to take care of themselves in any way. And so now that Pine Sap is gone, they say, well, that's sad because I really loved Pine Sap, but also I do know how to take care of myself. So good and bad. I think I screenshotted that bit. They were like, who's to say overall how that was.
Yeah, it made me think about Karimara again. And feeling like not being able to take care of yourself when your partner is gone, or do the things that usually they did, like the gardening in Karimara. Or for Moss, it's like they don't want to open the cupboard because Pine Sap isn't there, and it's like, Moss, you have to eat.
Yeah, please open the cupboard. Oh my god.
And yeah, so I don't want to say it's like a good or romantic thing to be like so codependent that you can't take care of yourself when your partner is gone, but I do understand it to some extent of like, yeah, it's something that happens when my fiance leaves town sometimes, when he's gone for like more than a day or two, where I'm like, oh, I can take care of myself. Like, he takes care of a lot of stuff around the house. He helps take care, he takes care of the dog. Like, he's working from home, so he does a lot of stuff around the house. And sometimes when I come back from campus, I'm like, I couldn't possibly take Maisie out right now. Like, it's impossible for me. Like, I couldn't possibly. And then he's gone, and I'm like, well, I have no choice, and I'm not feeling that inertia in the same way. So in a way, sort of, and I don't know, because Moss was like, just thought they were away briefly and thought they were going to come back. And so they're sort of in the denial stage.
Yeah. Big time denial. You do get them to feed themselves, though, which is good. I see what you mean about the Karimara comparison. The difference in this game versus Karimara is that you help give Moss the resources they need to understand they can take care of themselves. It's not like in Karimara, the mean old lady wasn't fully taking care of herself. There were just certain things that she couldn't do anymore, and also she was sad. But there's also this theme in Winter Burrow of like community and helping each other get better. And so it's partly about bringing Moss back into a community, because once you do solve things with your aunt, then you throw a party for everyone in the forest to come hang out again. And so you're reconnecting everybody that had kind of like lost contact with people who could support them, which was also really sweet and good and nice. And also, like, not outcasts really, but like several individuals who were sort of at the margins of their communities, where like Nautusk is like expelled from their, or abandoned by their by Squirrel Society. Moss is learning to live without their support person, and then Bufo and the tadpole.
What is their child's name, though? They have a specific name.
Fun fact about the names, by the way, I don't remember the child's name, but Bufo is apparently a shortening of like a scientific name for a certain kind of frog or toad.
Oh,
and so
I was gonna say it kind of sounds familiar, and I was like, this suits this frog, and I think that's why.
Yeah. So the child also has one name that's like that.
Yeah.
And then Betulina, similarly, also comes from the name of like a specific type of grain that mice would eat in this forest. Like the
Betulina is your aunt.
yeah, the ant. Um, so speaking of like creatures on the outskirts of their societies, Mole is one of those, and I did want to talk about their quest more because it was just the one that had the most like world building questions for me. But Mole, as a researcher, is doing research into mole society in general because apparently Mole does not know any other moles and has absolutely no connections to their heritage. Willow the mole. And so there are some really beautiful moments where, like, for Willow, you make a mole recipe that they get to try?
You bring back the pie, and then that's when Willow is like, oh, this is making me remember these. It's the closest I've ever felt to my fellow moles. You get like sort of a cutscene,
their
illustration of the ghosts of previous moles.
Yeah, which was a really sweet illustration. Two things about that quest, though. One is a very practical one, which is part of completing their quest line is that the mole you find like the holes into their underground tunnels, basically. And there's one by your house and there's one by the mole. And I thought that game was gonna let me use the tunnels. In fact, Willow...
Fast travel.
Yeah, Willow says several times, like, hey, if you want to use my tunnels, you should. They're warm and they're cool and they're great. You do not get to use the tunnels. And I didn't want the game made any easier per se, but fast travel between even just those 2 points would have been super clutch. And just, why not? Let me into the tunnels. Second thing. That was just my minor nitpick. Second thing. I need to know more about animals and their lives and how they live, because I didn't understand how this mole could never have known another mole in their whole life. Who raised you? What do you mean the moles went north? How come you don't know? How come there's no records? We found some records just like hanging out in the snow in the woods. But why wouldn't that stuff be underground if you're moles? It was making me crazy. I thought too much about it.
Yeah, it did feel like it was sort of referencing something that I didn't have enough context for.
Do moles abandon their young at birth?
Maybe.
Because that could be part of it. But then I was like, but how did you survive as a baby mole? I think part of my issue was I was operating under, like, despite not playing many survival games, I do have a lot of experience with woodland creature media because in childhood, that was kind of my bread and butter. So, like, I'm more operating in, like, a Redwall framework right now where they,
Which, crazy for you to, like, operate in the Redwall framework and then to be like, this bitch would have never survived if an owl took them.
Yeah, but that's because they actively fight the owls when they get taken. Like, there's more going on there. Also, there's cats that they fight. There's big creatures. Okay, I will stand by it. Also, the badgers fight with hammers, which is really cool. So that's the framework I'm coming from. But yeah, like, there would have been more mole society involved. And if there were, like, mole relics to find, there would have been there would have been a lot more actual evidence. So I was confused I could have a whole different game about Willow and the mole society archaeology experience because I had way too many questions.
I felt like it was like trying to give me hints to connect the dots, and I couldn't connect the dots because I didn't have enough context.
Yeah. And, well, maybe there just weren't actually that many dots to connect. You mentioned wanting to talk about Bufo and their child.
Yes. That was the other, besides the not pulling punches with pine sap and the finding dead bodies in the woods, I also really liked Bufo and their child's story. And it was also, or sorry, I should say, I want to compare it more to the fact that they don't end the game when you rescue your aunt, and instead you have to do caregiving, basically. I also feel like they had a more thoughtful take on this than a lot of, like, cozy stories do. where a lot of times it's like, yeah, help this like parent and their child reunite. And at first you think it might just be like, oh, you just need to go find this kid and like help them get back their stuck. But when you find their child, they're like, no, I left on purpose and I'm staying here. It's not like, oh, I ran away and I regret it and I want to go back now and everything's fine. It was like, no, my parent hurt me. I feel like they don't, like, I love them, but I feel like they don't know how to love me, which I thought was a really beautiful and poignant line. And there's a moment where they're like, please don't tell them I'm here. And your quest objective says report to Bufo question mark. And I don't know if you can, because I just immediately talked to them again and they say something that's like maybe a little softer. I think this is when they say like, I love them, but I don't know that they know how to love me, or like I wish they knew how to love me. And then the objective changes to find Bufo, and you don't narc on them. Like when you find Bufo, Bufo has done some of their own growing and thinking and reflecting on why their child left, and ultimately decides on their own to build this wooden extension to the house to honor their child's request. And I really like that you, as the character, are not in charge of doing the emotional healing for this group for this other family. Like instead, you are just listening and they are doing this work on their own. And then ultimately you're able to act as like a go-between to say, hey, just so you know, you might want to like check out this. But at no point do you narc on where this child has left. At no point does it put you in the position of being like, this, their parent is right or the child is right. And at no point are you the one that like fixes it by telling them some one-liner insightful thing. And I really like that.
For the gameplay, so at the point where it says report to Bufo question mark, I didn't know what to do next, and I didn't want to narc on the kid, but I didn't know what to do next. The kid is named Polywog, by the way. I'm looking at a screenshot now, I remember. So didn't want to narc on Polywog, totally understood where Polywog was coming from, but I didn't know what to do next. So I went to Bufo to talk to them, and at that point, it's when they played the dialogue where the mouse clearly doesn't say where Polywog is. Bufo just tells you about what they've been thinking about. So thankfully, they're just, despite whatever you choose, it's not really you get to choose in that moment. That's just what still happens. Yes, it felt deeply allegorical. You could put it in many ways. Like I was thinking about like having a queer child and like a judgmental parent, and the parent not knowing how to love them, but really needing to work on themselves in one way or another before any sort of repairs can be made. And I was really glad that that was how the story went with it for Polywog. And there was one particular line from Polywog that said, that I screenshotted because it really did like hit me in the gut. And it was, you don't know what it's like to have every conversation be a battle you have to lose if you want to survive. And I've definitely had conversations like that. And I feel for Polywog. So I think that was really the best case scenario way it could be resolved, and the outcome is beautiful and healthy, and I hope that there are kids who play this and it gives them an idea of what they deserve. You know?
Yeah. The other line I just want to mention from it that I think hit me really hard was, it's amazing like how good quiet failure feels when you constantly feel like you have to succeed. Or it's something like that really hit me, of like,
was that from
like
Polywog?
being able to be on my own without any judgment.
Right, because when you find Polywog, they're kind of struggling out there, even though they don't want to admit it, but they are on their own, and they're struggling on their own merits.
Yeah, strange how peaceful quiet failures can feel when ye success has never been good enough.
No, little baby.
I said, good God, Polywog wrecked me. Also, now that I'm looking at my notes, the other thing I wanted to say about Pine Sap that also reminded me of Karimara was the idea of this strong person dying from an accident. And like the way that like death just comes from you never know. And the like way that that can leave you feeling sort of out of place or like out of reality a little bit because it doesn't match up with what the story you have about this person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you ever read The Wind in the Willows?
No.
Which so inspired this? That is one of my very few did not finish books when I was a kid. I tried several times to read it and it just never captured me. And I do wonder, that was another thought that I had before this episode. I was like, what if I just dug up The Wind in the Willows and finally read it? Even now, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I was like, actually, no. I didn't like that.
Why? Is it boring?
It was more boring to me, I guess. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't adventure. Exactly. It didn't feel like that. But also, we're relying on like 22-year-old memories at this point. So,
yeah.
Don't come at me if you loved The Wind in the Willows. Maybe I just don't remember right and it rocks. Who knows? But yeah, I did wonder how much of the influence in this game comes from stuff in The Wind in the Willows, because maybe that book also is more, it was just more advanced than I could handle when I was a kid, even though it is a kid's book.
Yeah. I think my, like, summary of it is, I think sometimes they put the challenge in the wrong places. Like, I think there's a lot of friction as far as, like, managing your inventory that makes sense for a survival game. Makes sense. It's like a little mouse who, like, only has a little bit to carry and, like, it has to go all the way back to their burrow to, like, leave things. But it kind of got in the way of the fun for me and making progress a little bit too much. And I think that it would have been better applied to the difficulty of actually literally surviving. Like, I wish that friction was in the maintaining your, like, health and your warmth than it was about managing your inventory and, like, trekking over large swaths of area. At the same time, though, I'm like, I think mice do that in real life. So that's interesting. But despite, like, some of the mechanical things that I wish were a little bit smoother, I really loved the, like, quiet story of this game, and I thought it was really well done, and I'm glad that I saw it through. I think I wouldn't have seen it through if we didn't record this episode. I think I would have quit towards the beginning when I was feeling annoyed about my inventory, and a little confused about what to go do next. But I really, really enjoyed the story, and it was almost like a microdose isn't the right word because it's not micro. It's like super concentrated shot of story. Like, it's like there's not that much story. They're pretty short quests. It's a fairly short game. It's like 10 hours. But it feels like a EpiPen of story.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I think that all of the quests were really well written, despite okay, not all of them. I have world building questions for Willow, but
Sure.
most of them were very well written in ways that, like, were like a dart to the heart. Overall, like, again, I played this kind of obsessively. I didn't have a moment where I put it down because there was too much friction or I was annoyed or whatever. I was like, I am this mouse and I will survive. I think it was overall still less than the sum of its parts for me. Like, if I were thinking even for my young cousins or for friends looking for it, cozy survival, I don't know how many things are in that category, but I don't know if I would say this one, go play this one. But it's very beautiful to look at. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that they made a cozy survival game because I think that that's not a crossover that happens that often.
Yeah. I think it's something that can still be perfected. I want to see what they do next because I want to see if they can smooth out the things that bothered me here. Because they should be out to please me and only me.
Annie is your one user.
I've thrown down the gauntlet. We'll see if they respond. Okay. Upcoming games.
Yes, let's talk about upcoming games. So most of the ones I have to talk about are all coming out at the end of May. But one I want to talk about comes out May 12th, which is called Black Jacket. And it is a roguelite deck builder. as there are many. It is blackjack, as you might imagine from the name Black Jacket, and you are gambling in hell on blackjack with soul coins to escape hell. And I think that sounds cool and rad. That is out on May 12th. Next one, Our Little Mouse Friend, coming at last on May 28th. Mina the Hollower is a 2D action-adventure platformer from Yacht Club, the makers of the many beloved Shovel Knight games, and you play as a little mouse warrior, Mina, and it was previously delayed, I believe, so hoping that it will be out at last on May 28th.
It got delayed by Silksong.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's right. They were one of the ones that were like, we're getting out of Silksong's way. Also highly anticipated, Aggro Crab, their co-op forklift game, is coming out on May 28th. It is called Crash Out Crew. Noted peak enjoyers Annie and Robin have played the demo for Crash Out Crew on stream, and it seemed like you guys had
it was so much fun. I've been very much looking forward to the full game. I hope maybe AgroCrab put out a call for, if you're a content creator and you want keys to play the game, fill out this form. And so we filled out the form, and we'll see if we'll get codes for it. I don't know if we will, but we'll be buying it anyway, regardless, to play because it was so much fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to maybe getting to join you in playing that, because Peak was a great time in my life. Okay, last one, also coming out May 28th, is Scale the Depths. As you may remember from our itch.io snack mix episode, when Scale the Depths was a glimmer from a game jam, the full game is being released. I do not know what the price is yet. I would imagine that it's probably not going to be super expensive, but we really enjoyed Scale the Depths when it was a demo from a game jam, and it seems like there's more fish and more swords and more fishing areas that will be in the full game, and so that is very exciting, and I'm looking forward to it a lot.
It looks so good. I didn't realize I had it wishlisted, but I didn't realize they were really doing the full thing so soon. The art is just so
it was
delightful.
Pretty fast.
Yeah, all things considered. Amazing. Okay, wow. Yeah, I will be buying. I'm so excited. Good for them.
Yeah. So congrats to that team.
Glass Gecko Games.
And those are my games that I have flagged as coming out soon.
When you said mouse friend, I was really going to be like, you're going to have to be more specific. We always have some mouse game that we're kind of looking forward to.
We have many mouse friends.
But specifically Mina the Hollower. Yeah, all of those are thrilling. Blackjack, I don't know. Balatro was kind of an exception. I don't love a roguelite deck builder, but I like the cover art here with the stressed out player. I feel that all the time, so maybe I'll take a gander.
I will probably take a look at it depending on what the price is of it. And if it's not too crazy, it feels like it could be a really good thing to play on my Steam Deck. So yeah, likewise, I like the visual look of it. Although it's clearly, what roguelite deck builder doesn't borrow things from Slay the Spire? But clearly a lot of it has some sort of Slay the Spire-esque look to it. But I am also not ready to play Slay the Spire 2 yet. I want to wait until it's released.
Right on. Okay. Much to look forward to.
Yay! Thanks everyone for coming back to us, hopefully. Sorry we were away for so long. We didn't even have blueprints.
We had no excuse. It was just real life instead of a big game to work on. But yeah, we're excited to be back, and we have a lot planned.
We do have a plan. I can verify that we have a plan.
What were you going to do? Not verify it? Be like, actually, Annie lied to you just now. Which
Annie's lying to you.
Have a lot
Sorry.
Planned.
She's lying and she's just planned. Pretending.
God damn it. We do have a lot planned. We're very excited to get back into it. So, anyway, till next time.